thank you for joining us for an episode of That Solo Life, the podcast for PR pros and marketers who work for themselves. I am Michelle Kane. My company is Voice Matters, and I am here as ever with my wonderful co-host. She is Karen Swim. She is the leader of the pack. That is Solo PR Pro. Hi, Karen. How are you today?
Hello, my fabulous co-host, Michelle. How are you doing today?
I'm doing all right, Yeah, this is going to sound pathetic, but I'm looking forward to one day off in a 3-day weekend.
Yes, you are. And I am so glad that you're doing this for yourself because you have worked far too many days in a row. So I'm so proud of you for taking some time off.
As we do. We're kind of all type A and conscientious, and the world can't possibly stay spinning if I don't pay attention to it. Like, who am I? Get over myself. Yeah, I stink at this. Unless there's like a concert to go to somewhere or somewhere to be, I am just terrible at taking time, which could be a podcast for another day. But today we're going to talk about clients in crisis.
Yes.
and they better not have any on the day.
I love this topic. I mean, and I'm excited that we're talking about it. Yeah. And that may come as a surprise to people because we've really been living in crisis mode for the past year. But this is by far one of my favorite topics.
Yeah, and we were inspired actually by a blog on soloprpro.com. We've got Jess Lawler in charge of rounding up our fabulous smarties. And we have the blog right now is 5 Solo PR Pros Advise on Crisis Comm. So we really crowdsourced and asked some of our own to just kind of weigh in with their tips on how do you deal with a client crisis. And, of course, you should be prepared. I mean, that goes without question. I think, however, in the moment, it's good to prepare yourself, right? Yeah. Just know you have that part of your brain at the ready that if something hits the fan for your clients, that you've internalized some of this so that it becomes instinctual. I really liked what Joe Collada from What's Up Communications said was, the first thing he tells a client when dealing with a crisis is do not lie.
Yeah.
Because they're going to find out. They're going to find out. Yeah. Especially in this day of instant, everything's breaking news. And you will be found out if you lie. So please don't do that.
Well, you said something that I think is really key. So as communicators, we write crisis plans for our clients. We have them practice scenarios. We update them. And our whole reason for doing that is, number one, to proactively prevent unnecessary crises, to have policies in place so that things don't escalate. But we want it to become muscle memory for them. So we make them practice it. We make them revisit it. We make them review it. We assign roles so that when something happens, people are not trying to create the will. They're just following the playbook. But what you said, I think, is something that we don't talk about very often. And it's equally important. As a communicator, we need to have muscle memory as well to be able to instantly go from muscle memory. And that means internalizing all of these same principles. And I think that that's something, I don't hear many people talk about. I hear us talk about prepping clients, but not prepping ourselves and making sure that we are ready to go into counselor mode immediately. So it's more than just directing your client like, okay, we have a plan, but it's also making sure that you can tap into that immediately. So I love that you said that, and we should call that out for sure.
Absolutely, because you want to be the one to sail into the room and rally your troops who are your clients. They're looking to you in that moment to lead the way of like, okay, here we go. Now, we've got our spokesperson. You're going to make a statement at 3:00. We're going to issue it, here, put it online, and blah, blah, blah. You have to project that ease and authority so that they are confident in what they're saying. The thing about crises is they never come along and say, okay, so next Thursday at 3:30, the bottom's going to fall out of your day. No, it's usually surprise. There are some times, depending on what's happening in your client's world, that you may know something that's coming down the pipeline. But for the most part, it's definitely usually something unexpected as far as what or when.
Yeah, I think we can anticipate a lot, right? Based
Right.
on clients and industries and historical context. And, one of the things that I am so adamant about, and I sometimes feel like I'm just so repetitive in counseling clients, is that I think that two pillars that are super critical to avoiding crisis and then to efficiently managing it when it happens, not if, because
Hmm.
crises do happen, is number one, having a systematic structure of ethics.
Oh,
I,
goodness, yes.
anybody who's ever heard me speak on ethics has heard me say that a foundation of ethics is your defense against crisis. And the
Hmm.
reason that's so important, because it's not just about doing the right thing, it's really systematically understanding what are your values? What do you value as a corporation? Because what you value helps you to make decisions about what's right and what's wrong. And while, ethics is, a moral philosophy, there can be some areas that are not so black and white. If you make blue balloons and your values are blue balloons make people feel calm and they make people happy and they're great for birthday parties, but then someone else may say, well, balloons are terrible for the environment and they harm birds and we hate balloons and they're, environmentally unfriendly. What you value is going to be different from another brand that's fighting against that. But if you know that, you can have a foundation that ensures that everything that you do as a company is aligned with what you truly value. And you could be super specific about what's right, what's wrong, what's acceptable, and what's not. But here's the second piece that I think I've seen a lot this year is you also need to have a very strong internal communications
Oh,
program. I
absolutely.
am horrified by how many people
Don't.
focus on the external and don't have an internal comms program.
Hmm.
That's a recipe for disaster. If you're not communicating to your own people, you're not articulating things, you're not engaging them, you're not making them part of the company, you are headed for a crisis for sure. Because, so many crises, and I point this out to people because there are economic statistics that back up why ethics and internal comms is so important. Leaders that communicate are trusted. Leaders
Hmm.
that are trusted don't have ethical issues. You've got to have two-way communication. If you have two-way communication, your people are going to line up behind you. I mean, now, this also requires you to be an ethical leader. You can't be somebody who doesn't have integrity and expect people to follow and do what you say. But
Right.
having that having that ethical foundation married to the internal communications is going to set you up for success. And,
Yeah.
when we look at lawsuits and, customer complaints, you can always trace it back to cracks in one of those things.
I
So if
couldn't.
you don't allow those cracks to form, you're going
Yeah.
to have a measure of protection. And you're also going to build, trust equity with your audiences.
I-
Things are said all the time against people. And sometimes, you know what? Companies make mistakes. But if you have established a history of trust, your audience is going to support you and they're more likely to be forgiving, particularly when you're honest about the mistake. You're doing something to correct it, and you've shown that you genuinely did not want to make this mistake and that now you're going to fix it. But that takes time. It's like putting a deposit in a bank. If you don't make any deposits, you got nothing to withdraw.
I couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. And in fact, as you were speaking, I was thinking, yeah, and it's not just laying the groundwork for believability now in this moment. It's you have to walk your talk from day one.
Yeah.
Because, I can think of companies just now in my head of if they had, let's say it's, a meat company that has salmonella issue. I could go both ways depending who I think of. I could think of some and think, oh, well, yeah, that's why I don't even buy their product. And I could
Yeah.
think of others of, oh my goodness, I know they're ethical and I know they care. So I'm not going to worry. I'm going to trust that they're going to take care of this. And I am horrified along with you of some of the lack of internal comms, even of, I didn't know we were doing XYZ in the community. And I'm thinking, this, so there's it not only affects your out-facing persona, but it can turn into morale issues. It can turn into, at the sake of at the risk of sounding a little woo, energy issues of, just
Yeah.
the buoyancy of vibrancy that people bring to work. It's just that team building essence. And I think oftentimes what we do, oh, you're just, saying words and you're just communicating things. Well, yeah, exactly. I'm communicating. And that doesn't just mean that, we're creating cute little memes or, we're telling you what you should say. It's you are creating a culture through your communications. And there is a lot to that. There is a psychology to that.
Yeah.
There is a thoughtfulness, and it does have economic impact. So it is so important to make sure you
that, Chip reminds us that employees can be your biggest asset or your biggest weakness in a crisis. And he is 100% right. I think we've seen this happen so often in this past year. Companies that immediately come to mind are Basecamp, Uber, Amazon, so many. The Ellen Show. Just if you, once that there's a leak, and then people are like, yeah, it's horrible working here. This completely sucks. And we're walking out. And I have deleted so many apps and stopped using so many tools because of their policies, because I can't support companies that are evil to their employees. I can forgive. I can absolutely forgive mistakes, but I cannot forgive a pattern of unethical behavior and abuse toward employees. Just not going to do it if I know about it. I'm sure that there are things that are happening that I'm not aware of, but if I become aware of it, then I feel accountable to follow my own values. So yeah, I mean, I think that Chip, hit the nail on the head, but it's funny, like corporations are so perfect about saying our talent is our greatest asset. And
really? Do you really believe that?
So beautiful on a website and in a marketing brochure until you find out that, you don't treat them like that. And that's not okay. You can't just say things because they sound pretty or because you think it's what people want to hear if you're not going to do it. You can't do that. You're going to get found out. You're going to get exposed. Eventually, you will get exposed.
I think especially in the environment we're living in today, where everyone, most everyone is connected. Most of us are online. Information, whether good, bad, or indifferent, is available to us in a matter of seconds. So, and, people will talk. And I think that's a good thing. Like you point back to the Ellen Show and things like that, where, I'll be having conversations with people and they'll say, oh, well, why is everyone talking now? So, well, because they feel that they have the ability to now. They feel protected. They feel safe to do so. So I'm going to be inclined, where there's smoke, there's got to be a little fire. And
you're absolutely right.
And companies need to be aware of that. And like you say, evil practices with your employees. Like what's your point? How rich is rich enough? And it will,
I don't know, things are coming out now about Bill Gates and, here for many years, we've just thought of him as a wonderful philanthropist who was really moving the needle. And not to say that he has not done some excellent things in his life, but it's patently greatly that America created a corporate work culture where people felt afraid. They felt afraid for their livelihood. And these practices were allowed to go unchecked, and people rose to even greater positions of power, and they didn't deserve to be there. Now, I don't know the inside story. I have not fact checked it. So please do your own research and be discerning about media sources and check on it. But there are reports emerging that, are disturbing. Some of them appear to be false. And I don't want to get into his marriage because the way I feel about that, none of my business.
Right.
But the behavior with employees and when more and more people continue to step up, those are concerning. And as communicators, those are things that you absolutely should be talking about with your clients.
Totally. It's really, you liken it to attorney-client privilege, right? It's like we're in the cone of silence here. I don't know how many times I've said this on the show already. I don't need to know everything. I really don't want to know everything, but I need to know everything. It's the only way we can help you, guide you. And I don't say this in a cover-up way, but it helps us protect you, mostly from yourselves. It's like, no, you can't say that way. You might feel that. Say,
Well,
type it up.
yes.
Don't hit send.
Yes. Completely agree.
Please don't say it out loud.
We should absolutely be pre-qualifying clients based on these issues as well. I love that.
True.
One of our very smart PR professionals, she's no longer solo. She's doing great work in the public sector, but she's still part of our tribe, Allison Kenny. And she started a topic of discussion the other day about vetting startup clients.
Mm-hmm.
What are the things that you look at? Because and I love the discussion because she was thoughtful in, okay, what are the tools that you're using to research the leadership and research their experiences and their backgrounds? And I think that, as PR pros, we do have to feel good about the clients that we represent. I absolutely believe that they should align with our own values, that it should be work that we take great joy in doing, that we have some expertise that we can apply, that we can get results for them. But I also think that, you shouldn't feel icky about representing somebody. And if you are going to work with a company that maybe there's not a lot of public record and it's, a startup, that you do have to ask the hard questions about their leadership style and things that they believe. Ask, because if you don't, and that client turns out to be a nightmare and completely unhinged, and trust me, I've seen and heard things that have curled my hair, then you're going to be putting yourself and your reputation into a position to have to defend something that you don't even believe in. So
that is so true.
Yeah. I mean, ask. Don't be afraid to ask. And then don't be afraid to turn down work that doesn't align with who you are.
Right. I think it's so important what you just said of, some of the stink will rub off on you. And you have to make sure, okay, is that what I want to be known for? I mean, some people might want to craft their business that way of, hey, I can get anyone out of anything. And that's fine if that's your choice. But yeah, you want to make sure that they aren't doing anything too untoward, that you don't want to be, at the end of the day, either associated with or finding yourself in a position where you are the one crafting the defense for that. So I guess it's almost like, do you want to be a prosecutor or a criminal defense attorney? Well, not entirely. But anyway.
In this environment that we live in, I also think it's important to really kind of measure your own bandwidth about what you have the capacity to deal with right now. One of the hardest challenges for me over this past year is working with clients managing crisis in certain areas like DEI, because it's required me to immediately shift into, balanced professional that's completely neutral, and to be able to quickly assess the issues and to give advice with issues that are absolutely impacting me. And it's why I understand all the statistics around DEI professionals and why there's such a high rate of burnout, because you are both the person impacted, but also the person tasked with fixing the issues. And I don't want to minimize how difficult that is. Same for, there could be gender issues. Perhaps you are a woman who is having, and maybe you have suffered harassment, workplace harassment or abuse, and now you're having to manage these things in your professional realm. And so be honest with yourself about what you can really take on. And it's okay. I'm fond of saying lately, just, never be afraid to say no, never be afraid to walk away, and don't be afraid of not being able to do everything. It really is okay.
Right.
You can't get worked up about this stuff.
No, but you do need to protect yourself and your psyche and just your sanity too. At the end of the day, just making sure not to do, maybe, just know, okay, well, I can handle it with this client, but with that client, let me bring someone on board who can offset that.
Yeah. Because I love that Chip always comes in with the perfect soundbite.
Oh, this is great.
So smart. He is He's one of my favorite people. And I honestly learned so much from him. And just, he makes me better. Chip is one of those people. It's like, you make me so much better. And,
Yes.
you pull me up. You make me rise. I love that. He's
And
such
he
a,
better be careful. We're gonna have him on again soon. So look out,
we
Chip.
are. Yes, we
Do
are.
you want to read
Boy.
the quote or should I? Oh, where to go? There we go. He said, you may be able to attend church only on major occasions, but you can't profess ethics only when you're in a crisis. That's right.
Smart man.
Your
And that's
sins
so
will
true.
be found out.
Yeah. But, I also want to talk about the opportunity as
Mhm.
public relations professionals, especially these days. Everybody wants tier one media. They want business media. They want media relations. If you're able to take a step back and
Uh-huh.
point out those cracks in a client's foundation, you're
Yeah,
able to create richer engagements that are going to be more valuable for you as a professional, but as for the client as well. Because let's face it, media relations, we know that it's a steady drumbeat and that you can gain momentum, but it goes and it comes. And
hmm
getting, a Wall Street Journal hit or a New York Times hit today is not going to mean much in 5 years. It's,
right.
something that you have to continue doing. But when you are actually setting up an organization with a strong foundation for success, with an ethics infrastructure and with a strong internal communications program,
hmm
that's something that's going to continue to pay off in dollars and cents. And as PR professionals, we are often tasked with tying what we do to economic impact. That's one way of doing it. And there are all sorts of statistics and metrics out there that support that work. But I also personally find the engagements that allow us to go deeper and to really use our expertise to be so much more rewarding than just
Absolutely.
media relations. You get a little bored. I like to use my, not to say that you're not using your brain for media relations, because it requires a lot of
You are
creativity and
sure,
a lot of
but
persistence and building relationships. But I like to exercise other parts of my brain is
mhm.
what I'm really trying to say. Like,
We need variety.
yeah, you need a little
We do.
variety. And I
Yeah.
find that very rewarding when I can go deeper. And, I find that a lot of times within that, I get to lean into a lot of leadership, mentoring, and coaching, which I personally enjoy. Maybe you don't enjoy that, but if you add this and you become more strategic, which is something one of our Solo PR Pro members, Jennifer Hudson, talks about all the time. She is the strategic communications expert. She is the queen. She has courses on it. She talks about it. She speaks on it. She's highly in demand and she's so smart and really knows her stuff. If you really become more strategic, you are going to have richer, longer lasting, and more profitable client engagements.
hmm So true. So true. I mean, I think it's in a way our job as PR pros and even in the marketing and advertising world, it's our job to think for our clients to a certain extent, not clearly not in their area of expertise because they do what they do and we do what we do, but it is our job to think on their behalf of, okay, here's what you need to think of down the road. Why don't you try this? It's like if they do a lot of community and charity work, you really should consider maybe starting a foundation. And I love what you said about, just trying to get those bylines and those, placements. What if the organization operated from a point of ethics is one of our core values? The way we do business is one of our core values. So we're going to speak on that.
Yes.
And then you're in demand for that. And that's almost my favorite kind of media to get someone. Oh, and by the way, I sell fabulous products.
Yes. I
But
totally
that's
agree.
neither here nor there.
And, I was thinking of, if you really need to internalize this for yourself, that, you're capable of doing so much more and how valuable that really is. So we just, tax day was this week. And think about an accountant. Yeah, you might pay somebody to prepare your taxes, and that's great because they take the pain out of it. But you might even pay a little bit more for an accountant that's strategic on your behalf.
Exactly.
Somebody who looks at things and says, I noticed that, these systems that you're using are duplicate it. And there's a more streamlined way to do this. Or I noticed that you have these ongoing expenses. There are ways to save money on that. I looked at some ways that you could, reduce your tax burden. You want somebody that's thinking ahead for you, somebody who could say,
Yes.
this corporate structure worked for you early on, but I think that you should consider this. So we want those strategic counselors, and we're willing to pay a little more for that because the rewards are going to pay off. We're going to get our return on investment. But somebody who just does the task,
Right.
yeah, we'll give them money, but do we really value them? Because no, if somebody else comes along and they are going to do the task and they're going to do them cheaper, you might change because it's task to you. But when you are doing more than task and you're really getting into the strategy, that has a greater value.
Oh, that's so true. I mean, what you outlined is exactly what I look for in any service professional. I've told my accountant many times, please treat me like I'm a 4-year-old. Because in this arena, I am. Just lay it out and tell me it's going to be okay. But and I think we have that opportunity to be that to our clients. And I'm sure many of you listening are doing that. You're looking for those opportunities of, hey, this would be a great direction for you to move in. I think, it would position you well and might increase your sales, which is what you always want, or, grow your business. So I think it's key. It's key. So
I think that everyone in our audience wants to do this and maybe doing it on some level. But I also think that the majority of our audience can relate to getting in a spin cycle because clients are like, give me this, give me that, give me this. And you're just busy. You're managing your clients and you're just delivering results. And then you look up and you're like, how did I get here? I mean, I too have been guilty of that. Like, how did I get here? This is not even what I want to be doing. This is stupid.
Right.
So today we hope that we've given you some things to think about and to remember how smart you really are and how valuable you really are to your clients and how much more you could be getting in engagements, not only in terms of dollars and profit, but in terms of fulfillment.
I couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. It's, these are the pep talks we need to give to ourselves as well as to each other. And it's so true. We get so busy in the deadlines and the this and the that. And you just stop and think, I know even just lately I've been thinking, am I tracking all right? What's happening? And that's okay. That's good. It's good. It's why we should take an hour. Promise yourself you're going to take even 30 minutes every week and just think about your business and see how that does. And let us know about that at soloprpro.com. And if you have enjoyed this episode, please do share and subscribe. And until next time, we thank you so much for listening to That Solo Life.